whatever it may be. Okay, but sorry, I had to do that. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Real Talk. My name's Christian, for those of you who are new to the channel, and yes, I know it's been almost half a year since I put a video out, and I'm not going to make any more excuses. I've just not had the time now. But let's jump straight into today's video. So, I get asked frequently a lot, especially from M140 and 240 owners, you know, what's it like jumping up to an M2 in comparison with costs? And I always get asked, you know, what's it like on fuel? How much is this? How much is that? So I thought, right, let's do a video based on the running costs on an M2. So what is it like to own an M2? How much does it cost to run an M2 as a daily? So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. In a race car!
Please, I'm begging you, stop!
Sorry. Okay, so you join me in the car. So let's talk about how much it costs to run an M2. Now, I know straight away that it's going to change. It's going to vary person to person, owner to owner, based on if you use your car as a daily, if you use it as a toy, whatever it may be. Okay, I'm going to break down. I've had the car now since August. So I'm going to talk to you about my experience with it, how much I've been paying roughly, and because I use it as a daily. So this is more going to be focused at, more accurate for those who use their cars daily and do around 8 to 10,000 miles a year. First thing I thought I'd start off with, now as the disclaimer here, there's so many varying factors, okay, so don't take this as, oh, it's going to cost me what he says, because your age, for insurance, other bits and pieces, how much your local dealer or your specialist charge for services, everything's completely changed, but this should give you a kind of base guide. So I'll start first of all with the price of a car. So of course you can buy your car cash, and you can get it on finance. Now, majority of people do their cars finance. As I've always said in my videos, I finance. An M2, generally speaking, a nice good spec M2, low mileage, would cost you anywhere sort of between 400 to possibly £600 a month, with no deposit at all or a very small deposit. So let's just take that very simply, bang in the middle at say £500 a month, okay? So that is costing you £500 a month now. So if we calculate that over the year, I'll do it on a yearly basis and then you can work it out monthly, because it's all numbers everywhere whilst I'm driving, quite distracting at the best of times. So that's £6,000 a year. Now again, that can be very different. You could put a massive deposit down and pay very little, whatever it may be, but generally speaking, this is, I'm not saying that's how much I'm paying, but an M2 on a decent PCP deal is anywhere between £400 to £600, so let's say £500 bang in the middle, okay? Now I do just want to say, with any sort of car, it's important you don't financially commit yourself, because it's not just, yeah, the car costs £500 a month, I can afford that. There's a lot of other stuff that comes with owning a car like this, and one of that being, because it's a sports car, things need to be done more frequently. So that's services, you know, brakes need changing, which cost more, tyres cost more than what a normal car would. I know the general kind of step up here, and people who are going to be watching this video, those who are looking at getting an M2, of course, but coming from a car like an M140, because I was doing the exact same. I was looking for these kind of videos. You know, how different is an M2 to an M140 or a 240? And we could go on and on about the differences, but it is going to cost you more to run. Not considerably more, but you'll have to do things more frequently, as I said, than you would with a car like an M140 or M240. The most expensive thing that comes with an M2 is your insurance. Now, this is all for me, my personal thing, okay? So my insurance for the year, which I think is quite cheap, is £1,200. All right? Now, £1,200 isn't bad at all, considering my age, but so many different factors on the BMW forums and M2 forums. You know, you see people who are younger than me who are paying £700, or people older paying almost £2,500. It varies from person to person, area to area, occupation to occupation. There's so many varying factors, okay? That has now brought the subtotal up to this car at the moment is costing me £7,200 a year. All right. Now on to the other thing that is a legal requirement, of course, is taxing the car. So this actually can vary on what M2 you get, whether it be, you know, a 16, 66 plate, depending on when it was registered. But this particular one, any car after the 1st of April 2017, does fall under the new tax brackets, which I believe have now gone to 450, 465. So just for maths, easy maths, let's call it £450 a year to tax an M2, which an M140, regardless of what age you kind of get, if you get a newer one or a 240, as long as you keep the car under £40,000, you're paying £140 road tax. So it is quite a chunk. Now, when I bought this car, the reason I got a non-LCI is I thought, yeah, I can save money on the taxi because it's not going to be 400 odd quid. Turns out I got my dates all mixed up and ended up buying a non-LCI and still had to pay the high tax, which, shame on me. But that is quite a big hit. You need to remember, at the end, tax always comes around at the worst possible time. So just with the car, insurance and tax, it is now costing you £7,650 a year. On to the more kind of general running costs of the car. Fuel, servicing, tyres, all of that kind of stuff. So we'll start, I think, with the servicing. Now, with it being an M car, I know that BMW, the way that they work with their services, you have a little mile thing, and it counts down. You know, you've got 12,000 miles to do until you need a service. But with an M car, I tend to say, regardless if you're doing very little mileage or not, you want to get it serviced as a minimum every single year. Now, whether that be a major service or a small service, but the services are certainly more frequent than just a normal BMW. You can take it to a BMW dealership, you can take it to a specialist. Now, every price differs. Now, I've had the car serviced a few months ago with RSV Automotive, who are absolutely fantastic, specialists in Chester. And for, I wouldn't say it was a major service, but general oil change, oil filter, spark plugs, I think I paid just under £400 for that. But collating some data online with average kind of BMW prices, major services, on average, for an average service divided over, say, a 3 or 4 year period, you would probably be looking at anywhere sort of between £500 to £700 a month. Not month, sorry, a year. So again, if we go bang in the middle there and take that as a £600 yearly kind of fee that you'd have to pay, we add that onto our total now. So we're now including the monthly price of the car, we're including our insurance, tax and servicing. That brings it up to £8,250 a year. That's not taking fuel into account yet, alright? We're not breaking down into things like, obviously, your brakes that need doing every year or two. We'll get onto that in a second. But, you know, a lot of people flip their cars very quickly. So, to be perfectly honest, I may not even need to change my brakes during my ownership of this car. But onto the tyres. Now, again, this varies from person to person. This is my kind of experience with the M2, having it since August, like I said, and using it as a daily driver, which I'm not going to be doing anymore just because I do want to keep the miles off, is your tyres. Now, tyres are very expensive. When I say expensive, you don't want to compromise when you've got a car like this with rubbish tyres. You want to go for decent tyres. Now, tyres to me, I was always with Michelin, okay, Super Sports. I thought they're absolutely brilliant until I recently went to PS4Ss, and they are just absolutely phenomenal, and I will not change my tyres again for that. So my rears I would probably, the way that I drive, you know, I like going for spirited drives, a little bit of sideways action when it's safe to do so. So I would say a set of tyres would probably get me through about 10,000 miles. Okay, so again, that is a year of driving. That's rear tyres. Now, rear tyres on this, a set of rears, would cost you about 500 quid. Okay, so we're going to change that every year. Now, the fronts, a little bit cheaper. You'd probably want to change those. Well, for me, could probably get 20,000 miles out of them, if not 25. So they're a little bit cheaper. We'll probably have to change them every 2 years. So we'll take the price of the front tyres and divide it by 2 to accommodate what would be like the yearly cost, if that makes sense. Just to make it easy math. So rears are 500 yearly is what I'd pay for them. Fronts, probably about £180 each, so 360. But as I'll change that every 2 years, we'll just split 360 in half. So 180 plus the 500 for the rear. I hope that makes sense. So all in all, roughly spending around £680 a year on tyres. So we'll round that up for the sake of where we've rounded down and where we've rounded up before. We've rounded that up to £700, right? So our grand total now, so this is including monthly price of the car, insurance, tax, servicing, and now tyres. That has now gone up to 8,950, if I'm right in saying. So near enough 9 grand. So £8,950. Now again, that still is including things like fuel. So you're paying a significant amount here, well, a year, to maintain a car like this. And this is why it's so important when you go to get a sports car like this, or any sort of sports car of this kind, you do need to take these things into consideration, because it is stuff that you do need to pay for, genuinely. And it's so easy to get so excited, you know, and you just lose all logic and think, yeah, I can do that, and before you know it, a year later you've got all these expenses to pay for, and it's just difficult. Okay, so let's just chuck in an MOT every year as well. 50 quid takes us to bang on £9,000 so far a year to run an M2 for me, for someone who's doing around 10,000 miles. Now again, as I said, prices can change, you know, from person to person. It's very, very different. To things like fuel. Fuel on this is, it depends on your routes, you know. As you've probably seen, I put on Instagram, I got almost 40 miles to the gallon, but that was during, you know, motorway, just motorway, in comfort, 50 mile an hour roadworks on the M6, which have been there for about 2 decades. They never seem to go. That's how I achieved that. But my normal kind of drive to work, I normally get anywhere between high teens to low mid 20s. So to put things simply, I get 200, 250 miles out of a tank if I'm lucky, if I'm really, really lucky. And for me, that's equivalent to 5 days worth of work. That is not taking into consideration other drives that I'll do. So not including that, just general running it to and from work, I'll probably go through a tank. If we said a week would last me a tank, and a tank is around £60, so every month I am forking out £240. So when we look at that on the yearly costs, you know, it's 2,880. So suddenly we are now paying £11,880 a year. It's including the actual monthly cost, which, you know, you may buy the car cash, you don't have to worry about that. But that is also including your insurance, your tax, your services, your tyres, and your fuel. Now that's not getting onto other general maintenance bits and pieces, things that may go wrong with a car, changing your brakes, but I don't think I need to break those down, because you may not ever have to change them. I don't think I'd ever have to change these. But you can see it does get very, very expensive, you know. And then when we actually really crunch the numbers down, you think, look, that's almost 12 grand a year. So every month, this is costing you £1,000, double what you'd originally thought it was going to cost you. And that's why it's so important to budget right with these types of cars. For me, it depends what's your cup of tea. I don't think you can get a better car for the money. Couldn't spend my money any other way and be as happy as I am, you know. People like pottery, people like doing flowers, people like, you know, hands-on stuff, and people just love having nice cars and being able to go for nice drives, and that's what my money does for me. And I'm sure everyone who's watching this is thinking, oh, do I just go for the M2? if you're in minds of going for an M2, go and drive one, because you'll just think, do you know what, it's absolutely worth it. But at the same time, it is really important that you do lend responsibly and not overcommit yourself to something that potentially can put you in quite a financial sticky situation. I think it's fair to say around £12,000 a year, if you are dailing an M2 doing anywhere sort of between 8 to 10,000 miles, is probably thereabouts.
There you have it. Now, this is the only place I can stand in the house as there's boxes everywhere at the minute, but just working those figures out myself, it's a lot of money. But look, as I said, everyone has their own preferences, and for us car guys and girls, you know, is that money worth it? Absolutely, because it makes you smile, it makes you happy. Caution to everyone there who's looking at getting something and who's a young age and doing this and whatever it may be, just be cautious. It's not just the monthly payments, it's not just the car, there's a lot of maintenance that goes with these cars. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.